Welcome, everyone, to yet another edition of the Director's Cut. I was about to say it's July, but it's not. It's going to be the August edition. We're filming in July. We're in film. Nothing ever happens in real time unless you're in a real time show. Anyhow, so Jason Camp is joining me for the August edition of the Director's Cut. Jason Camp's project, Testimony, won I believe it was short drama, the best short drama at SCIF 2022. Actually got 2 awards, not just for best short drama, but also best actor. We can talk a little bit about that as well. But, nature of the Director's Cut, for those of you who know by now, is really the executive director talking to the director about their projects, what they've done, themselves, their journey, et cetera, et cetera. So Jason Camp, welcome. Welcome to the Director's Cut.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this crazy hot day. For those of you who don't know, we are in Southern California. I think the whole world is baking right now, but we're up at about 105, I think, or something crazy like that. So I hope you may hear the hum of my AC. I am not turning it off. You may hear the hum of Jason's AC or fan. I am not letting him turn it off. We don't want this to be a medical emergency drama, although that might be fun to film. But Jason, so tell me, as crazy and hokey as this sounds, we love to hear about the directors, their journey, how they got here. Off camera, you told me you're from Chicago. So why don't we start there? Like how'd you find your way from cold Chicago to sweltering Los Angeles? Like, what was that journey like?
Well, first of all, I love this weather a lot more than negative 20 degrees. So I love the city, born and raised in Chicago, South Side, and went to Columbia College, Chicago, graduated from there. And I've always had a love for film, and my mother got a video camera. She won it actually in a typing competition when I was
typing. Did you say like typing?
Typing. Okay. My mother typed like 120 words a minute.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So she ended up winning a competition, and what she won was a video camera. And she came home. I was 7 years old. I had no idea how to operate it, but it really just resonated with me. And I took it to the basement and just started playing around and doing tricks and trying to learn as much as I could about the camera. And I don't even think I got the manual. It was just kind of one of those things where it just made sense to me. It's something that was just not only fun, but it just really was something that just really I gravitated to. And I just kept going and kept doing it even through, high school. We didn't have like a film program where I went to high school, but.
So did you shoot anything on that camera? Was like your first film, video?
Yeah, I did. So I did like a lot of, if I recall, it's like trick photography. I would try and make myself, which I guess now would be like the early stages of visual effects, special effects. So I would do a thing where I would, I was a kid, I would go like this, sort of like I dream a genie, and then I would try to make myself disappear. And just through editing, which, like I said, I didn't even really know how to necessarily do it, but I understood like, one frame you're here, and if you can time it, the next frame you're out of the shot, then you're kind of doing a special effect. And so that was something that I started making, movies like that, trick things, and then like home videos of the dog and the cat. And I was big into Ninja Turtles. Like, so I have my own, like, Ninja Turtle type of props and stuff. And I do things like that. I need to actually find that tape. It's somewhere in my mom's attic back in Chicago.
Because that tape will be used. That tape will be used and held against you at some point in time. You should know that. That's what mamas do. So you said you went to high school.
Yeah.
You said you went to high school. There was no film program. So self-taught, like, how did this keep on going?
So I just, I did like a summer program, actually, ironically, at Columbia College when I was about, I think, 17 or somewhere around there. And ironically, I played sports as well. And I had an opportunity to go overseas to play in a basketball tournament. So I didn't finish the program. But fast forward, I ended up going to Columbia College. I first went to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. I ended up transferring to Columbia. But when I came back to Chicago and went to Columbia, we just started immediately. And we were shooting on, I'm old enough to remember Bolexes on actual film. And I'm just so grateful for that, because I think when you kind of understand as well that medium and film and I think now a lot of times we'll let the camera roll because we don't have to spend money to develop the actual film. Yep. And back in the day, you had to, you were very, you're like, okay, what exactly do I need? Let's get that, because every single foot that you're running was money going to develop. So I'm very grateful for that. I was like right on the cusp of the, digital. We edited on, Avid and everything in college. So, but it was cool because I really, once I got there, it was really, I knew like, okay, this is really something I want to really pursue. And I was also working on sets when I was, things that would come in town in Chicago. What was great about it let me, kind of take off and work on set as long as I got my work done. So getting that real world experience and also the theory and also practice in school was a great way to, eventually when I moved to LA, I had that experience and felt pretty confident when I got out of here.
So I have two questions then. Question number one is, what you're describing to me is more of a DP's journey, right? Like, I mean, you were hands on camera. So where did that go into directing? And was that just a normal transition for you, right? Because there's kind of DP directors and directors where it's about the actors, right? So that's kind of one question. And then question number two is, what year did you come out to Los Angeles?
So I'm big on just really independent, learn everything. I feel like a director to really, if you're going to delegate and understand, I think you should have an understanding of pretty much all the positions, all the departments. And so I really wanted to learn as much as I could in all, departments. And obviously the, DP is a great way to learn because you're understanding you're understanding how to compose shots. And I think that helps you as a director. And again, I usually have very small crews and even the cast is usually pretty small at this point. When you kind of learn all those positions and then when you kind of branch off and get more crew, you have a better understanding how you communicate with your crew. And so that's how I kind of got on, kind of with that path. In terms of directing, I've always wanted to kind of shape the film and the vision. I really believe in storyboarding and preparation, really key. And so kind of composing those shots before even talking to a DP, just knowing what direction you want to go, I think as a director is critical so that everyone else also has confidence in where you're doing. So, and I moved to LA when I moved here, it's 2007. So when I moved out here, I did a bunch of, I was working on a ton of music videos. That was pretty crazy because it was, hours and hours. If you ever worked on a video, especially back then, the rules have changed, but, a lot of times it was pretty crazy. It was like almost a flat fee and you were doing these crazy hours. And for a music video, and it's like music video is like 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But the experience, you get the experience and you meet people and you just continue to learn and just kind of see how it really works in the real world. Because, theory is one thing, but when you get out there, and a lot of times I think even in film schools, I love my experience, but I think a lot of times in schools, the creative part is great, but the actual delegation and the operation of actually physically creating something, a lot of times we lack and we forget because we're so wrapped up in the creative. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out a way to actually, get it done and up against the clock and understanding that and then having to make tough decisions where it's like, I really want this shot, but for the, good of the project, I'm going to have to get rid of this shot. My favorite shot because we have to get the film done, There's those tough decisions I think you have to make. And that comes with, being creative, but also being practical and understanding what you need. Job done. So
for Testimony, how many, was this your first short that you'd done or where is it in the succession of your kind of resume?
No, I've done a few shorts. I've done, I'd say, I don't know, countless, always shooting little stuff or, I've done a lot of teaser, with me, always create projects that can be expanded on. And for instance, Testimony is actually it's a kind of proof of concept short for a television show that I've.
Okay.
So it's I'm really big on that. I've shot, in terms of number, I'm not sure. I haven't shot a lot of shorts. I do a lot of writing, and I have a lot of things kind of ready to go. But fortunate, years ago, I had a short film that made its run and had a couple festivals and made a very good run and got some eyes looking at it. But I always tell people that you have one thing and you've got to have your next thing ready to go. And as great as the awards, accolades are, I think it's one thing I've learned, always just kind of have that next thing, thinking 1 or 2, 3 steps ahead. Definitely start capitalizing and also just continue to be creative, because I think we can all get into a lull where it's like, you're going on these festivals, like the festival run. We've had an incredible run with this film, and times where I'm like, man, I wish I could be, writing, and I've got this other idea, and you just kind of find that balance, but always kind of keep your eye on the prize, where it's like getting your, take that next step.
Yep. So what inspired Testimony?
So I'm really big on, this kind of my voice, if you will, writing of this conflict within oneself and like moral dilemma. Once seeing the film, it's kind of deals with that, where it's essentially an interrogation scene where, the detectives aren't who they say they are. It's a supernatural twist to it. Kind of good and bad. Your right shoulder, your left shoulder kind of battling. And I really love those type of stories. And I actually just saw Oppenheimer, and it was interesting because this dilemma, I've always been fascinated with that, with Oppenheimer, because one of the most, pivotal moments in human history.
That's right.
Through this conflict of what he was doing, creating this, bomb, and what had to happen because, Nazis were doing it, as well. This conflict of what's right and wrong and the greater good. I really resonate with those stories. So Testimony is kind of like a version of that. And the TV show really delves into both sides of kind of like a subject, a person having to deal with a conflict that, something happened. We've all hit adversity and had to make tough decisions. And it the show kind of, not giving too much away, but it kind of plays on, if you're getting hit with a dilemma, which way do you lean, right? Like right shoulder, your left shoulder. So that's kind of the play. And that was the kind of inspiration for Testimony. And
when you wrote it, and again, hopefully this doesn't give too much away, but it's it's one location, right? It's a one location shot. I mean, was that purposeful? Or did it just happen that way?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I had some other scenes outside of the interrogation room, but again, short, but you have a small budget, very independent. And we had a 3-person crew. It was like,
that was actually one of my questions, because you said earlier, I work with a very small crew. And I was going to ask you, how big was the Testimony crew that you worked with?
It was literally, it was me, my DP, and my location sound recordist. And also have my production coordinator, coordinating logistics. And we were just, I was hanging lights, in a perfect world, I would rather, have more crew, but we had a grip that couldn't make it that day. And, I had a dolly, I had a lot of shots, again, going back to doing what you have to do to get the film done. A lot of shots had a dolly, but we just literally just did not have a crew to push the dolly. So, and it just comes down to, it's very small budget and doing what you have to do to get it done. And so, but, I think it's, again, I'm really big on the preparation. I did like a whole pre-viz, and I put it on an iPad where we could literally go scene by scene. So like every film, when you're up against the clock, we could reference my DP. I could, say, hey, go to scene 5, 8, and there was a diagram, and you could see exactly what we were doing. So the main thing where it's like, sometimes in a perfect world, I'd love to have, a huge crew.
But that's the independent creative spirit, right? Like you just make it happen. You just make it happen.
Yeah. And I was behind the camera. I had my DP was behind the camera too. So it was like, you just do what you need to do to get it done. And ultimately, I mean, we had incredible actors that were very, we had a table read. Remember, we're still in the pandemic at this point.
Right.
Did a Zoom table read and really taking the time to talk with the actors. And so we're all on the same page. So when we got there on set, we were really just out there. They were able to just kind of play, because I really believe as a director too, just kind of set that table and let them kind of go and do what they do. So, and I think we had a good, even though we were up against the clock like every film is, I think we had a good experience where people felt, good, and they felt they could take chances and really, be open to the characters.
Yep. So this is going to be a little bit of a different question than what I normally ask, but I have to ask it because your lead won for Best Actor. So talk to me about the actors. Where'd you find them? How'd you find them? Why did you cast the way you cast? And why did you choose who ultimately won?
Yeah, so Roberto Sanchez, he won Best Actor for short. And it's funny, I've known Roberto for, over a decade now. And we played ball at pickup basketball at LA Fitness for years. And he's been in a ton of things. He's like incredible actor. And I sent him the script, and I was, I didn't know if he was going to do a, short. He's done like tons of things. I mean, he's done stuff. He's in the second Fast and Furious. He's done tons of TV shows, just an incredible resume. And I sent it to him, and he usually plays very tough characters. And he is kind of,
I was about to say, but he was in this movie too. I mean, he was kind of a badass. Yeah. So
I knew that was kind of his wheelhouse. And, but it also, I think it had one thing he liked about it was that it had this kind of layers of, this charm beginning. If you've seen the film, where he's kind of baiting in the main character, and he's got this charisma, and then he kind of takes a twist, and you're like, okay, what's going on? So I knew I needed an actor that could give you that range and that versatility. And Roberto was great, and I was so glad he jumped on board the project. And Vlad Vasai, he's just an incredible young actor that's he's done a ton of things as well, and he just had a certain kind of great quality that I knew I had to get someone that could really play off of each other with Roberto. Had great rapport with each other, and Vlad kind of, you've seen the film, not to give it away, but he's got to kind of mask who he is, what he's done, and maybe what he has or has not done, and it just took like someone that really has that kind of that range as well. And I worked with Vlad on another short years ago.
Okay.
So it was like,
so you knew each other already.
Yeah, I knew Vlad before, and I knew Roberto as well. And then filling out the cast, it's funny. I actually, in between, gigs, I do Uber. And Mike, who was actually, he has a small role, but Mike Silva, who's the guy, he kind of, Roberto morphs into somebody. And then Mike is a suspect that kind of appears out of nowhere. I met Mike on an Uber ride, and he was an actor. And we were just talking. I was like, hey, I'm working on this project. It's a small role. I had cast everybody else at that point. I was like, look, I need somebody, small role. Yeah. Hey, I'm down. So I tell people all the time, you never know how you're going to get your cast and who, is going to be right for whatever project. And I thought that was we always kind of kid around about that. It's like on an Uber ride. It was so crazy. So, but we have, Latoya, who's just incredible actress. And I think as a writer and director, it's so great when you meet. Latoya plays the wife of the main character. She has it's a small scene, but it's so pivotal, and she gives this incredible performance. And it's like one of those times where when you write, you're like, man, I wish I'd written a little bit more to have her on screen. But she came in and did just an unbelievable job of like I said, complimenting everyone. Felt like they complimented each other and just tried to capture, the ultimate goal. And So, and we just filled it out. Like Scott, who plays an attorney, I've known him for years. So, it's just a lot of people that I know. And actually, I got Black to Ratoya, who plays his wife. So it's like, my thing is, again, we're in the pandemic, there's a lot going on. And like, you just don't have the time to do the casting, go into a spot and do, so this just made sense as well. And I actually kind of like this because now you're, people that work together and feel comfortable with each other because we didn't have the physical time with each other because of the pandemic. So.
Right. Well, the pandemic's changed though how casting is done now. So everyone seems to be doing Zoom submissions and, but at least you guys had that energy before is what it feels like. So,
and also when Phil and Becky, who play the other detectives as well.
Yep.
Right? Phil was, again, he was, at the time he was in Chicago and he happened to be out here. And we had trouble. I had Phil, one of the detectives, was the last person to film. And it was actually a couple of days before we're shooting. And I didn't even I've known Phil. I actually went to school with Phil. I worked on Phil on a short as well, Columbia. And so the fact he was in town, it was a godsend because I literally a couple of days before just like I couldn't, cast that. And then I called him. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in LA." I was like, "You kidding me?" It's one of those things where it's like, I always tell people, it's like darkest before the dawn is, I think it was something, it's always like that. Literally, it was all the roles were not filled up until, a day before,
right.
And it was already in for the location and it was like, it had to get shot. So I was like, I was pretty much going to bring a suit if I had to play, one of the detectives.
That's right. Grip, cameraman. Grip, electric lights, the whole 9 yards.
Just in case, you got to do what you got to do to make it happen.
So, when did you shoot? Because obviously you said you were doing casting during the pandemic. Like, when was the actual shoot date?
We shot, I think it was October of 2021. So
we were still kind of in it.
It's, I think we're coming to, an end or, shots are out and like in terms of like the vaccine and everything. And I took a course. So we, be in compliance and everything and compliance officers and all that. And so we had masks, we followed all the protocol with SAG. And so it was like one of those things where it was just, I originally, ironically, I planned on shooting this very short the week everything shut down in 2020. And I had actually scheduled, thank God I hadn't done a deposit or anything in 2020. And obviously everything changed. And so everything stopped. But as things went on, because it was just stoppage. And then it was like, we're back and then we're not. So I just decided financial standpoint, you just got to, wait this out. And, I felt comfortable around October 21 to go forward and we shot it in 2 days. So, we just got it done and did what we had to do to stay compliant and we're just all glad we were able to actually get it done.
Well, the good news is there wasn't a lot of moves, right? There was no company moves that you had to schedule and stuff like that. So that probably helped the schedule a lot as well. But being that it was a small crew and that every project has its share of gotchas. Like what were the things that went wrong? Other than like, I was ready to put on a suit and go out and put myself in front of, like, what were the things that went wrong? What were the shots you gave up? What were the compromises you made to make sure like this got done? And, obviously it won, so you must be happy with it. But, every director I know is always just a little bit like, oh, this could have been better. Oh, that could have been better. Oh, I didn't see that. So I'm just kind of curious where you fall on that, knowing what went wrong that you could have done better.
Yeah. So I've never done a film where I'm like, I got everything. Like, this is great, and this is included. There's a shot. So in the film, there's a realization that, the main character, he's in this world, the supernatural moment is happening. and I had this, like, I literally practiced this in my bedroom. This vertigo shot. Have you ever seen Vertigo, where you're zooming in and dollying back? And it was like I had like a star next to it. Like, I was like, we're gonna get this shot. It's gonna be incredible, because it was a climactic moment in the short. And once this happens, the audience is gonna go crazy. None of that.
Never happened. Never happened.
And we didn't have the crew. It's really a complicated shot, because you're literally physically moving forward while zooming back. And then, depending on which way you go, you got to focus, critical focus thing going on. Right. And we didn't have the crew to get it done. So I remember
at that point, you need an AC to be able to pull focus at that point. Yeah.
I remember, it's funny, because I actually practiced in my bedroom, and I was able to pull it off on my own. But it comes down to, I knew that shot was going to take time. And I was like, as much as I want the shot, I got to get my ego out of this and do what was necessary. And so that was the main thing. I still, to this day, look, and I'm just like, if I had gotten this shot. And there were a couple other like dolly shots. I did have one that I rented a Rhino, which is a piece of equipment where it can kind of motorize, and have a shot where it's kind of moving, it's tracking on the side. I never used one before, so it was also the learning curve. I was, practicing, but on set, it's like, it's a whole nother thing when, now you've got the actors there, and it's like, it's a shot. So I also had to, we almost didn't get that shot. It's actually one of the shots I really like in the film, but, really had to cut a few scenes as well, because it just was going to take too much time. Another, just the, we were hanging lights. It took a little longer than I thought. Again, we had a grip that, couldn't make it. So had to adjust for that. But, then you just, a lot of shots I had, I was just like, all right, let's just go handheld. Yep. And, kind of, because I knew I wanted, especially at the end, if you see the film, it gets very, the edits get very aggressive, and the camera's moving a lot more. So I just said, let's just get it handheld, so we make sure we get this, and then still get the same feel that we want, this chaos going on around. Yeah. And I come editing as well. So it's like, editing background. So I knew kind of where I wanted to go with it. And I was able to pick up things I wanted in the edit, where I could kind of, create other things. And another thing was, during the pandemic, one thing I did was started learning visual effects. And so this was like the first project I've actually done where there's visual effects elements. And that was fun. And so that was another element where it's kind of unknown, where I didn't really, I knew I had certain things I needed to do to make sure because when you're in the edit, they say fix it in post. Right. If you don't have certain things, good luck. You can cut around story, but so that was kind of one thing where I was making sure that I would have time to get the plates and stuff and things I needed, because if you don't,
but that's why you have the previs all done basically at that point, right? All that planning.
That is like so critical. And I knew, if there's not a lot of crew, I could rely on that. Now I've been going over this movie for, at that point, years in my head. So again, it comes down to delegating and everyone else. Like, Roberto, lead actor, always kids around. He's like, I still don't know what this movie's about, because there's a lot of weird, it's funny because there's a lot of weird elements. And if you see it, it's pretty trippy, which is what I kind of wanted, and have people in the audience thinking kind of have their own interpretation. And, but that's, good luck trying to delegate that. If again, people need to know, your crew need to know as you, as the director, you clear vision. And I can say to where we needed to go and certain things that needed to happen in order to get it all done. So I'm most part, I'm pretty happy. And like I said, we've had a great run, and I'm, very honored and blessed that we were selected, let alone won Santa Clarita. So
two, you guys won two. You won two.
Very, we were just really surprised, and we were just very grateful to have that opportunity, because we're just kind of, you submit these festivals and you hope best to get in. You're just happy to, get in. It's going to get screened, and there's nothing like seeing it on the big screen. It's like
big screen. That's our commitment to, by the way, to the filmmakers. Like we could throw up, a little couple of chairs and a screen, and how many festivals have you been at like that, right? And it's like, oh, it's a festival, and you're like, I could have had this in my backyard. But no, our commitment is to, every artist to see that name on the big screen. And, after you give your blood, sweat, and tears, and God knows, the last director we talked to said a really important, poignant point that most people don't think of: the recovery after this is done. And nobody takes into consideration the recovery time after it's done. And so it's not just the blood, sweat, and tears during, but it's like that recovery after. And so it's, our commitment is absolutely 110%. We're going to, I'm sorry?
You all too. I mean, you guys are planning this for months and months, years at times. And it's like, all of a sudden, these theaters, you got to negotiate with them. And I tell people all the time, this is, to put on a festival is a lot of work. Not only just looking at all the films that come in, ratio of like the ones that actually get selected, but you got to watch all of them, right? And then it's like, the
chaos behind the scenes. In fact, that's why we're shooting actually a documentary feature of the making of, because the chaos and the drama behind the scenes. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Agreed. 110%. Now we're also doing music and comedy on top of everything else. So we've got all these other things rolling in addition to the film, right? So I don't know if we're just crazy or sadomasochistic. That I don't know. I don't know that.
God bless you. Listen, I love it. I mean, creative, we have to protect. I'm saying the arts and the content and the up and coming filmmakers, and these platforms are like necessary, because I think, listen, I love Marvel. I love all the action, big movies. But, I was just saying, like back in the day as a kid, those, as ridiculous as like a Joe versus the volcano, right? Like, or, those older movies that have big, right? Like, a guy wakes up and he's this, 30-year-old man is now, 10 or however old he was.
Yeah.
Those concept things, but they're cult classics, and they really do shape, childhoods. And it's like, I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that. And also, you find stars, right? That was Tom Hanks, early Tom Hanks, one of the great actors ever. And these films that look and sound ridiculous, but they have these amazing qualities to them that, just kind of are your soundtrack to your childhood. And it's like,
that's right.
We need to, have just a balance. I love all the big, films, but hopefully, and, after this, the strikes and everything, we kind of get a better balance of the stuff that we see in the theaters. So,
but I mean, even if you think of like an independent, right? Like, I mean, that's one of the things we're really committed to building. And at some point it will become a beast in and of itself. We know that, right? But, when Kevin Smith, right, like turns around and says, in this current market, Jay and Silent Bob would have never got picked up. Right. Like that's mind blowing. Like that, that was what independent used to be. Like take a camera. It was black and white. We're going to do some shots. Didn't really matter if it was a wide angle or whatever. Like, I mean, it was such a simple premise, and that doesn't exist anymore. Right. Like the numbers don't add up. I mean, there's this amazing article that was just written, and they said like most independents are lucky if they break even. Right. And I mean, and then when you think about these budgets too, like, I mean, like you said, small budget, right? Like I agree. Like, oh, by the way, if you're ever trying a dolly the next time you don't have one, a wheelchair works just as well.
Yeah.
Wheelchair
listen,
just as well.
If I can find, I need to find a picture, but I have one short I did years ago. We had where you take like a cart for like milk crates or two-wheel. There's a shot of me with the camera, like I'm snug like this, and I'm on the back. Someone's carrying me like and I'm just, that was our dolly shot. I mean, I'll get roller skates, do whatever you need to do. But there's a ton of different, you just got to be creative and
but it's like you think about what an independent budget is, like a couple of $1,000s, like, you know what I mean? Even if you're doing a feature, maybe you're going over 100, but even that's a lot for a lot of people. Right. And so when I hear independent and I hear people going, oh yeah, it was an independent film. And, our budget was 1.5 million. I'm like, that's not an independent at that point in time. So, our commitment really is to like great storytelling and true independent artists and creativity. And it's like, I was talking to a couple of folks who I actually think we screened in the same block. You weren't there for the screening, my short. And our New York, again, we had 2 people for our New York crew, and we shot all of it because it could be gritty on an iPhone. So we shot the New York part on the iPhone, and the little bit bigger, more kind of where we needed sound and lights and all that, we shot in LA. And people were like, we couldn't tell the difference. Like, we couldn't tell. And I was like, that's the point. Like, you can do it. You can absolutely shoot, so go get it done.
Yeah, no, the technology, we are living in an incredible time. Like, we shot on a GH5, which is pretty much a still camera. And I was just blown away, like what you could do with the camera. And I was just like, because I think this, one of the first or early things I've shot with this camera. Yep. And I tried other things, some anamorphic lenses, right? Like, you couldn't really get the full anamorphic feel with this film, but just the fact I can get an anamorphic, lens on a still camera, crazy. I mean, it's like, and they have even, I think, lenses for iPhones, and it's just technology we're here. And that's why I think I really believe out of this period of uncertainty, if you will, is going to be a crop and a whole force of people that are independent, filmmakers that create a wave of different genres, different just technical how they shoot. And I really, I'm looking forward to it. It's going back to the independent things. I'm working right now, hopefully shoot my first feature. And I told my, producer, I was like, budget, get your, the budget in order, but I can do this, this, and that. Now, in a perfect world, we'll get all the money, but if we don't get it, let's just.
How do you do it? Yeah.
Filmmaking and make it happen, and it's like, I think hopefully, I was looking at Reservoir Dogs the other day, and, Tarantino, right? He has a signature style, and you look at that film and it was just like, this is just basic, but his writing and dialogue is so great. And I hope we get just another wave and a crop of filmmakers that can take and I think it does happen on, so just a full force and of just, hey, this was an incredible story idea, low budget, whatever that means. And then, but the story was great and it has this cult feel to it. And I think it's a bunch of things and platforms, like I said, Santa Clarita and festivals that are showing these things. It creates a kind of like a groundswell. And then all of a sudden, big, studios are looking like, why are we spending $250 million when we could be funding 20 people at 5 and, five, less than that or whatever it is. And then we keep creating things. And so the business model, I think, is hopefully will change out of this. And I think if it's more accessible for people, we'll get more people making some pretty cool stuff. So. Well,
I mean, look, the way we ingest content is different, right? Like, I mean, before the concept of like having a Zoom interview was like, no, you can't do that. Like, I mean, if you and I weren't in a studio and shooting with, kind of the studio feel with the lights and the camera, people will kind of shun it. And now here we are. And it's like, this is completely acceptable. We can edit it. We can cut it up. It's not perfect, but we can pump it out there. There's a massive reach. We can reach a lot of people. We'll support it from a social media standpoint. And it's okay, right? Because it's about content. And at the end of the day, it's also about the conversation that we're having, right? And it's not like we're just taking a picture of like, I don't know, our salad and being like, look at this. Like, it's an actual conversation, right? So
translates in the films, right? Like getting back, like, okay, you can blow stuff up and it's cool, but why is this character doing that? Right? Like, what is the motivation? Why did that happen? And it's like, I always look at Breaking Bad as a great example of just like perfect show, like where you got these characters that are just opposite, Jesse and Walt, who just wouldn't interact with each other, but it's just so well written. And then as it goes on, these characters develop more. And ultimately, it's really not about, it is about the drug empire, but it's about these two guys in different stages in their lives, different motivations, and they're just constantly colliding with all these other characters. And that's really the heart. And it's just so brilliantly done.
Yep.
And it's really not a lot going on, right? Like
No.
in terms of big budget in Breaking Bad, it's just great,
writing.
Yeah. Like that's really what I hope that, just try and learn from that and try and channel like why are these characters interacting and really keep in mind like that's ultimately what people go to see and why they
Agreed
characters. So
agreed 110%. Like I come from a theater background, and so for me it was like you've got a black box, 4 boxes, go, right? Like take me on a journey. And some of the best plays I've ever seen were literally just that. But the acting was so good and the writing was so good that you didn't not believe that this was some huge set, right? Like that you were able to give them that because they still took you on that emotional journey. And I almost feel like everything else should be gravy, but you should be able to strip all that away and be able to put that script. I mean, barring like locations and stuff, but you should be able to put that script in a black box theater and still take people on the same journey, without all the special effects but that's not, unfortunately, like you said, it's formulaic right now. And so it is about, one of the first things that we said year one was we start with a story. That was our tagline, and it's not about the budget. It's not about whether you had Dolly or not. It's not whether you had a really recognized name actor or not. It's just about, do you take me on that story and do you make me feel, and that's what we're trying to get back to. And hopefully be this platform where the next Kevin Smith is discovered or the next, big independent movie is discovered, because we have gotten away from that. Right. Like and that's why I said, look, I mean, I'm not going to pretend and be holier than thou, because at some point this thing will be a juggernaut and, and then and they'll be like, remember when Skiff was this little great independent and now it's not, and, but at least for now, that's our commitment, and not just to the filmmakers, but to the musicians and to the artists and the comedians and the whole 9 yards. That's really what we're trying to be anyway. So
yeah, no, the communication is great. We had like so much going on at the time. I remember Vlad was there for the screening, but the communication was always incredible. I mean, I was constantly in contact, and I drove up. I don't know if you remember, but drove up and for the award ceremony, and it was a lot of times too. I used to be in Santa Clarita a lot. So it was cool when I saw it. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. I was glad that they had a festival, and so look, I'm just honored that we were selected, and it's like to continue success, and I'm definitely a fan. So keep going.
So what's next for you from a project perspective? I heard feature. What is next on the radar?
So I have a couple of shorts as well that I want to shoot. My kind of priority is hopefully I'm going to put out in the universe, shooting a feature, first feature. And it's essentially, it's like 8 Mile meets Save the Last Dance, but it's about like this gifted violinist on the south side of Chicago. And he's kind of trying to play his way to a better life, if you will. So there's a lot of musical elements in it, but it's ultimately about kind of a coming of age story. And this kid who's like this gifted, prodigy, but is kind of lost in the direction he needs to go after his father. He ends up losing his father. So it's a kind of it's a drama, but a lot of musical elements in it as well. So shooting that, and then also just, a lot of shorts, is trying to continue to stay busy. And that's going to be
in Chicago, obviously, in location. Okay.
Yeah. The goal is like first to second quarter in 2024.
Okay. In the winter. You're going back in the winter.
Yeah, I say I wasn't going to go back there, right? I go with the cold weather. Here I am, like prepping to shoot Chicago. But it's something, like I said, if one thing about Chicago, if you can point the camera anywhere, and it's just an incredible city, the architecture and the grit of the city, and part of the element of this film, it is about this cold world, if you will. and this rose from the concrete. And so that's kind of part of the reason why. And I'm also born and raised there. So it's like a lot of spots I'm always like, man, this would be great if we could shoot here. And so, that's the goal, to shoot that. And I'm always writing. I got, a ton of pilots, that I write. I just try to write. I try and write something every month.
Keep that muscle going, basically. Just flex that muscle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get a short or I've really been doing like pilots later. And so I've just got a bunch of those kind of ready to go and thinking about shooting, possibly shooting one of those. And really just be ready for, have, the feature. And like I said, I'm really big on independent and just have an arsenal of material and content. And then that way, wherever it finds a home. And like I said, I truly believe that the festival circuit, I believe in it. And it's like getting it out there. And I think it's beneficial for both, parties, where it's like, if you have a project that's out there, get it in the festivals and so that, get people to come see it and kind of build ground and market. And then, if you're also fortunate, you're able to, do a licensing deal with the studio or network or whatever. I think it's great. Right. And it's like, say like, hey, this came from here. And so, just doing that and just writing and hopefully looking at, doing another short, which is kind of trippy. And I'm real big on like, I want to challenge myself in terms of the type of content that's out there as well. I felt like Testimony was something kind of unique and trippy. And it's kind of cool when you've done pretty well in the market and it's cool to see the reaction of people seeing that. And so just trying to also just continue to hone kind of my voice but not get, just kind of pigeonholed in one place. Cause I truly like that variety, and I've got some comedies and some other stuff. So, but really mainly I think in a script, it really comes down to that script, right? Like that's the thing you have to, to go anywhere, do anything. I just try and always focus on getting that muscle and exercising that muscle so that, later on it's like, hey, if, everyone has this great idea. If you write a feature, like, can you get that done in, 2 months or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Find that rhythm in your system of how you can be creative, but also be practical in how to get it done and the job done. That applies for actually filming as well. So.
Yep. So last thoughts, I always ask everybody this, like, your advice to the world, to your fellow colleagues, to your new up and coming director who's afraid to take that first leap of faith. What is your words of wisdom that you would impart as we kind of wrap up the show?
I just think, just be fearless, just, get out there. And if the idea that you had, that you're just a little nervous about doing, it's like, sit down and really look in the mirror and say, why are you nervous? Right? Like, what is holding you back? And for instance,
in your case, it was the pandemic for a little bit. So that was fair.
But even with that, it's like, that time I felt, at least for me, there were a lot of things I had, a lot of ideas I had, and I'm glad you actually brought that up. There's a lot of ideas I had that I was that same guy that was like, I don't know how I'm going to shoot this, right? The visual effects aspect. Literally I would get up during the pandemic. I said, okay, I need to get a new skill. I cannot go through, obviously stay safe and make sure that, but I was like, what am I going to learn and develop out of this time? Right. Because I knew I would be in this for a little while. And so I would wake up, it was like a job, right? I'd get up at like 7, and from like 7 to 11, 12, I would learn visual effects just on YouTube, and so then once that happened, and I had, again, Testimony to some visual effects elements, I didn't know how to do that before. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'll hire somebody. It's like, well, you need money for that. So I was just like, I tell all the filmmakers, like, look, if you don't know how to do it, go to YouTube, say, okay, how do you do this? And there's just a wealth of information out there now. And it's like, okay, I know how to do this. Maybe I have some friends that are maybe better at doing this. Come take a look at this. Can you pull this off? It's like, okay, great. You can do that. Now it's like, all right, well, I'm not, I don't know about cameras technically. Let me look online and see what cameras of people shooting with this and that. And then just find, make a list, really, like figure out what's holding you back, what you need in order to get your idea out, and then just start tackling it, one by one. And it's like the cameras, it's like, okay, I need 4K, right? Well, my phone does 4K, right? Okay,
right.
so
right.
check that off. I need an actor. Who do I know? Do I have some friends that are actors? It's like, who's in it's LA, right? Like there's a ton of actors everywhere. Just something basic, maybe something that you wrote, that you say, hey, get a group together and just read, do a table read,
right.
and then, yeah, you would be perfect for this. So I think a lot of times it's like, it's fear, right? False evidence appearing real, right? Like a lot of times we kind of get in our own ways. And I was the same way, where it was like, well, what if this doesn't come into play? For instance, like I said, if I didn't have my whole cast, a day before we're shooting,
right.
But it worked out, and, I put my best foot forward and, try and prepare for things, but there's just some things you're just going to have to accept that it's the unknown, right? And embrace that unknown. And I think for makers doing that, if you just kind of embrace that, but know, like, I'm real big on preparation, right? Like, know what you want to get out of this project. For me, testimony, like, how do I take one location and do a, kind of a trippy story and execute it and make it interesting for, 17 minutes. Like, and that was the challenge for me. And then it was, that was kind of the, there's a certain level of, nervousness about it, because it's like people are looking at you like, is this going to make sense? Does this make sense? But again, when you embrace the unknown and you just kind of walk in your own path and say, you know what, I'm going to make any adjustment I need to make in order to keep the vision alive. It's like, as long as you keep that, I think you'll be able to kind of get through any rocky, and bumpy bumps in the road. So, just get out. Like, it's cliche, but, just get out there and do it. But just the technology is here. The opportunity is here. And there's a ton of festivals to get it shown. And incredible time where it's, I've seen, there's nothing like seeing it in a big screen, and I'm big on visualizing too, right? Like visualize when you go see a movie, right? Like when I was watching Oppenheimer, I saw it in, most ridiculous 70 millimeter huge screen where it was like, I almost had to lean over to see the bottom of the screen. And I was visualizing like in that position, and it's like, you keep that kind of goal and just mentally put yourself in that space, whether it's, $100 million movie or it's, sandwiches,
$100 movie, right?
Favors and sandwiches budget, you get that same mentality. And I think if you do that, you just take steps to keep going forward, and you'll eventually get to your, where you want to go. So
got it. Well, Jason Camp, congratulations on not just one, but 2 wins at SCIF 2022. Obviously, our best to Roberto as well, from all of us for an amazing performance. Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is it, guys. August of the director's cut, talking to Jason Camp. Testimony won best short drama. And it also won Best Actor. A phenomenal performance by Roberto Sanchez, who also lives up in Santa Clarita, from what I hear. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll always hope that this gives you guys some insight as to what your colleagues and your friends are doing in this space. We'd love to see you at SCIF. We'd love to see you and Roberto again for your next projects, or anyone else on your team for your next projects at SCIF. We're here for you. That's what we do. Come by. We're here next, this coming year, December 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. So hopefully we'll see you. And the one thing I ask all our directors who won is if you're interested in being a judge, because I think that sometimes those who were judged should have the opportunity to judge. So let me know if you're interested in that, and we'll get you going too.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, number one, thank you so much for the festival and also this platform and continued success. And this is, like I said, from my cast and crew, thank you, because, all the work you put in, and all the other directors as well, and producers, writers, and everybody continue this platform. And we're really appreciative as filmmakers and content creators, because you all are necessary, and we're just very grateful and very thankful. So.
Love to have you. Love to have you. Jason Camp, thank you. And everyone, we will catch you on the next one.
Yeah.